Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Jess here, LJ on Farming Outdoors. And in today's video, I'm talking about the pond. And more specifically, what it takes to maintain this pond. And some of the ways I've done it in the past. One way in particular that didn't work out well for me at all. And then a new attachment I got recently. Hopefully it works as well as I think it's going to, and it's not just another good idea. So I picked up the brush mower from Rut Manufacturing for the excavator, and today we're going to be putting that to the test and see if it is the ideal way, the perfect way to maintain the edges of this pond and keep all the weeds cut and out of the way. That way we can get in here and fish. So let's see if it's the real deal. Alright, I know you probably couldn't hear that to the camera because the camera's in the cab, but spinning this thing up almost sounds like a jet engine, and I really like it. Just sounds cool, sounds mean. And this is literally the first time that I have spun this up, other than just making sure that it was rotating the right direction and I had all my lines hooked up correctly. This is the first time I'm putting it to work. So I'm just taking it nice and slow, just kind of getting a feel for it. And because no one wants to watch at normal speed, it's just kind of the same thing over and over. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up a little bit so we can actually see some progress happening here. I will say in the past, I have mowed this with a tractor and a brush hog. And a few years ago, I ended up running my brush hog, not my brush hog, my whole tractor with the brush hog attached into the pond. And I did it like most people do. I was backing up into those weeds and lowering my brush hog and going back and forth like that all the way around the pond. And not only did that take a while, but it's kind of hard on your neck too, because you're having to be turned around in the seat constantly watching where you're going. But we were in a drought. I didn't realize that the water level of the pond had dropped quite a bit, and there was a ledge to that pond that I couldn't see because of the weeds, and my back tractor tires went off in that while I was brush hogging, and brush hog slapped the water, and it didn't take long. It sucked me right in there, and once all four of those tires hit the bottom of the pond where it's real slick and muddy, it just kept sliding in there. It didn't matter what I did, hitting the brakes, killing the PTO, whatever, it didn't matter. I was in the pond before I knew it. So to me, that's just not a good long-term solution. I don't want to do that again. But long story short, the tractor is okay. I'm still using it to this day. I was able to get all of the water out of it. I did kill the tractor before it actually sucked in any water into the intake. But at this point in cutting the pond, I'm knowing that I made a good purchase. This is absolutely the best tool that I've used yet to cut the edges of the pond. Now, I know obviously everyone doesn't have an excavator, but if you do and you have a pond, get you a brush cutter, brush mower. It doesn't have to be the biggest, most fancy thing out there. This is the base model, the most basic model that Rut Manufacturing makes. It's literally just a blade carrier and two blades, nothing fancy. It actually has the sides that stick out about the width of the blades, but it does a fantastic job. And really, anything is better than running your tractor off in the pond. And really, this is making pretty quick work of this pond bank. Those slopes and those steep angles there can be quite a challenge with a tractor and a brush hog. And heating the water might slow the hydraulics down a little bit, but I haven't seen where it has any bad effects on the brush mower overall. So yes, this is the Rut Manufacturing 42-inch model brush mower. I have it rigged up for the KX080 mount, manual quick connect, and this is just a 2-blade design. I don't know if you can tell there. I'll have some other pictures or maybe some video of tilting this up and running it so you can see the blade carrier and all that, but you can see all that on their website just fine. Now, this isn't necessarily a gearbox, they call it a speed increaser. So you have the hydraulic motor and they just run it through an increaser. That way to get the blade speed up to where it needs to be to cut at its optimum level. You know, nothing really here to look at. I'm at 27 GPM. The flow is what they have it set at because the aux flow on the KX080 is like 26.5, somewhere around there. So yeah, like I said, initially I just wanted to get into the brush mower or brush cutter for the excavator. Pretty cheap, and the Rut does that. In my opinion, it's a very good value for the money and what you get for a cutter. And so far I have no complaints over this cutter. Now, I didn't think that I would want one of the other style cutters like the tree slayer or the brush eliminator, where the blade sticks out past the deck, because I thought I might want to mow around trees and up against fence posts, mow around my fence lines and things like that, and I didn't want to risk damaging any of that. And that's still true, and that's another main reason why I went with this cutter. However, after running this one, I now see that there is not necessarily a need, I guess it kind of is a need, but an opportunity, I'll say that, an opportunity to trim a lot of limbs and things that are overhanging, hanging out over things, over the driveway, over my fences, things like that, where it'll do it. it's not ideal because those blades don't stick out past the deck. With a brush eliminator and tree slayer, those blades stick out past the deck, and it would be a lot easier getting up and trimming some of those limbs that are hanging out. At least that's kind of how I feel after using this for a little while. All right, I'm pretty much done cutting around the pond for now. I've got cut what I can, but I don't know if you could tell there in some of those shots, the ground is still pretty wet in some spots. We've been getting a ton of rain. And yeah, I got about as close as I was comfortable getting to the pond. The excavator was sinking in some spots, especially down here on this end that's real wet. But let me turn you around here, we'll look at it. Now, a lot of what you're seeing here is out in the pond. And, you know, I got out as far as I could with the excavator and got right up along the bank. And all of this looks really good now. All of this was really tall weeds. All of that out there, I'm gonna have to do something different on that. But at least we can get up here close now, throw a rod out there and be able to reel in a fish. And that's kind of the main thing I was after. And also, we don't see a ton of snakes, but there are some that show up every once in a while. And if you are out here fishing, it's nice to be able to see the snake before it sees you. So this was a spot that was just growed up in weeds, and we could stand right here, and that's about it. Didn't really want to walk out in here. Now I can, and I can get right up close, right up on the water, probably even cast out there, and maybe even be able to catch a fish on this end down here now. And this side was bad, but it wasn't near as bad as the other side of the pond. Probably seen that. So just, you know, if you're curious if that cutter will cut off a fence post, it will. And I was thinking that that deck designed the way it is and the blades not sticking out past the deck wouldn't have that problem. But the thing is, the blade is just right there at the edge of the deck. So if whatever you're bumping up against has any flex to it and it bends, that blade will go ahead and make contact, as you've seen there. So that fence post, it was just stuck in some mud. It wasn't really rigid, and it actually bent over a little bit, and when it did, sliced her off. I've actually got the pieces of it in the back of the side by side. I managed to find them. And so getting up in the vines, this cutter, it does okay, but again, I think one of the cutters that have the blades sticking out past the deck would do a little bit better on vines. Maybe even if you have the tree slayer that has the mulching teeth on it, just something to grab that material. You're not necessarily going to use that to mulch a bunch, but I think what those mulching teeth do is it will grab that material and kind of stir it up at least, or move it around at least where the blades can get it and grab onto it, or you know, cut it. And same thing with material down on the ground. Take a ride around the backside here. So this is the spot here that was pretty wet. And you can see my excavator tracks where I came through here. And there's some more excavator tracks and some standing water. And even the side by sides sinking up a little bit. I'm gonna go around that. And I did clean up around a couple of these trees here with the brush mower. I'll tell you, that thing it's nice. I might actually look at some other options now that I know how well it works. So all of this was just super tall weeds. And now we can get over here on this backside and fish a little bit. There's that T-post. cutter off. I don't know if I can pull that out or not. Yeah. At least that's out of the way for next time. So really happy with how the backside of the pond looks now, because all of this has just always stayed grown up. And like I said, I have cut it a few times with the brush hog on the back of the tractor, but it's always kind of sketchy backing up to the pond. And sure enough, one time it got me, so I don't want to do that anymore. Alright, I think that's going to wrap this video up. Just wanted to do a quick video on the Rut Manufacturing brush mower, and honestly nothing bad to say about it. I kind of knew the design that I was getting and some of the reasons I was getting it for, and it just made sense. But just how well it works and some of the possibilities that I have seen of other things that I can cut with a cutter using the excavator, it's got my wheels turning, looking at some other designs, whether that be mulchers, you know, disc mulcher, maybe flail mower, or you know, maybe even just the tree slayer, the 3-blade design of this one, where the blades stick out past the deck and it has the mulching teeth. But the downside is I could run a 48-inch cutter on this excavator and it would handle it just fine. However, the Rut Manufacturing 48-inch cutter has to have a case drain, or my machine would have to have a case drain. And currently right now it doesn't have a case drain. I have looked at putting one on there. I can do it. It's not super expensive. It's just something I would have to take the time to do. So it may be an option for the future, but right now I'm going to stick with this one, and sure am enjoying it, getting a lot of work out of it, and it's making this place look even better than I could have imagined. But with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for checking out the channel. Y'all have a blessed day. We'll see you on the next one.